Hello and welcome to the news desk at 10 at NTA News 24. We're reaching you live from Abuja. I am Olajide Bello. First, the headlines. President Tinubu calls on world leaders to deepen relations among member states of United Nations.
We must renew our focus on conflict prevention.
Nigeria solicits support of Finland in its pursuit of a permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council. Central Bank of Nigeria raises interest rate to 27.25%.
We're also concerned about the growing level of fiscal deficit.
President Tinubu approves revision of consolidated public service salary structure. President Bola Tinubu has called on world leaders to deepen relations among member states of the United Nations in line with the principles of inclusivity, equality and cooperation. Represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima, the President made the call while addressing world leaders during the general debate of the ongoing 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly at the UN headquarters in New York, United States. State House correspondent Abdurrahman Jibrila reports.
This is the climax of the annual global event, countries giving their national statements, and it's the turn of Nigeria.
Process of corruption.
Vice President Kashim Shettima standing in for President Bola Tinubu with a well-scripted national statement and a rich content focusing on contemporary global challenges and practical recommendations. First, Nigeria reminded the world leaders that the United Nations stands for inclusiveness anchored on the tripod of peace, sustainable development, and human rights.
Addressing the root causes of conflict is often the first step towards providing long-term solutions. Clearly, some of the root causes of conflict are social in nature, including poverty, hunger, ignorance, inequality, and exclusion, as well as other forms of injustice.
Expressing worry about the main objectives of the United Nations and how it could sustain the global body's relevance and resilience, lamenting the return of unconstitutional changes of government in some African countries.
Conflict resolution is the main reason why the UN exists, but the task of prevention becomes all the more difficult when conflict becomes normalized, when even the condemnation of violence and civilian casualties and calls for a ceasefire are somehow regarded as controversial. As we emphasize at the Abuja high-level ministerial meeting, we must renew our focus on conflict prevention.
Calling for reforms in the international financial architecture and a transparent multilateral trading system, hoping the adoption of the Pact for the Future will change the narrative, asking the UN to prioritize debt forgiveness for Nigeria and other developing countries from creditors and multilateral financial institutions.
Climate change is a driver of insecurity, which also poses a veritable challenge to sustainable development. A few weeks ago, large areas of my country were inundated by seasonal flood waters, including one of our largest cities, Maiduguri, in the northeast. Other parts of Nigeria also experienced similar tragedies, occasioning the loss of lives and property. We need not remind ourselves to remain faithful to the implementation of the commitments that we all gave voluntarily at the various COP meetings. Failure to do so is merely to postpone the inevitable. No country is immune from the effects of climate change.
Other world leaders at the session made statements aimed at addressing global concerns.
I stand before you in these whirlwinds convinced of two overriding truths. First, the state of our world is unsustainable. We can't go on like this. And second, the challenges we face are solvable. But that requires us to make sure the mechanisms of international problem solving actually solve problems.
It is time to invest more in building trust and practicing dialogue. Constant dialogue is a powerful weapon for all governments have in their hands.
Today, the United States and Vietnam are partners and friends, and it's proof that even from the horrors of war, there's a way forward. Things can get better.
The Nigeria's statement insisted on bold reforms in the United Nations Security Council with a view to giving Nigeria and other African countries permanent seats at the council. From New York, Abraham Jibrila, NTA News.
Nigeria has solicited the support of Finland in its pursuit of a permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council. State House correspondent Abdurrahman Jibrila reports that Vice President Kashim Shettima at a meeting the President of the Republic of Finland, Alexander Stubb, on the sidelines of the ongoing 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, said the support has become necessary given Finland's role as an European and NATO member and considering the role Nigeria has played over the years in entrenching democratic values and peaceful cohesion. Nigeria has already indicated interest in the UN's Secretary Council seat, following calls for reforms and expansion of the Council by some UN member countries. President Stubb of Finland expressed total support for the expansion and reconstruction of the UN Security Council, saying the dynamics of the modern world demand such change. In a related development at the meeting between Vice President Shettima and African Union Chairperson Musa Faki Mohammed, Vice President Kashim Shettima stressed the need for consolidation of democracy as well as peaceful collaborations. The Vice President indicated Nigeria's interest in hosting the African Central Bank, maintaining that Africa has come of age to host one of AU chairperson. Thanked Nigeria for its role in stabilizing Africa, adding that the AU will continue to ensure that African stability and peace remain a priority. And Nigeria's First Lady, Oluremi Tinubu, has called on stakeholders across the globe to develop innovative approaches to fight both tuberculosis and antimicrobial resistance AMR in a strategic and integrated manner that targets prevention of new infections. She was speaking in New York at an event organized by the Stop TB Partnership on the margins of the 79th United Nations General Assembly. State House correspondent Adeni Taiwo reports.
As the global and national Stop TB champion, Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu is expected to lend a voice and resources to the campaign in order to stop the spread of tuberculosis around the world. She is here on that duty as the Stop TB Partnership rallies stakeholders in New York in a renewed bid to break the resistance of the scourge. Her keynote address acknowledges that tuberculosis, with its drug-resistant nature, is a tough nut, which she ever believes is not beyond the will and resources of the world to crack.
We have the tools, the knowledge, and the expertise to end TB and AMR by 2030. Addressing TB and AMR together is not just the smart way, it is the best and only way. Our methods must include improving awareness, education on the dangers of drug-resistant TB, and promoting the appropriate use of antibiotics. We must also prioritize research in order to develop new tools, treatments, and new vaccines that can outpace the evolving threat of AMR.
In Nigeria, where the intervention of a pet project, the Renewed Hope initiative, has led to the procurement of 25 TB molecular diagnostics machines and reagents that can conduct over 15,000 tests, the race to change the tuberculosis narrative ahead of 2030 is on.
I'm also informed that this support has motivated the manufacturers and global distributors together with their partners in Nigeria, to donate an additional 50 TB lamps to aid the country in the fight against tuberculosis. In addition, First Ladies of various states in Nigeria who double as Stop TB champions and I will be embarking on a nationwide TB advocacy to accelerate improved diagnosis and prompt treatment.
To fully move the needle on tuberculosis and AMR, the Executive Director, Stop TB Partnership, Lucica Ditio, harped on the need for strong collaboration, noting that the battle cannot be won in isolation. What is clear from the submission of Nigeria's First Lady and that of other speakers is that a multi-sectorial approach involving a lot of research and advocacy is required to achieve the objective of ending tuberculosis by 2030. And indeed, that is what Nigerians and the rest of the world are expecting in order to achieve a future where tuberculosis is no longer a threat. From New York, Adeniyi Taiwo, NTA News.
And again, how to further close the gender gap in Africa, paving way for policies and programs that protect and empower women, dominate discussions as members of the Organization of African First Ladies for Development, OFLAD, praise its We Are Equal campaign on the sidelines of the 79th August session in New York. State House correspondent Adeniyi Taiwo reports that Nigeria's First Lady, Oluremi Tinubu, attended the session with the theme Amplifying Change Through Collaboration. The meeting, which seeks to build solidarity among the First Ladies and development partners, takes stock of the ground already covered with their We Are Equal campaign in the area of girl-child education, gender-based violence, health and women empowerment on the continent, ending with a 10-point call for action. Highlights of the call for action include making decisions through gender lens, elimination of gender-based violence, removal of persistent barriers to girl education, and increased investment in essential public goods and system in recognition of the successful and impactful launch of the campaign in Nigeria. The First Lady received an award of appreciation from the organization. The back home, Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has pledged his administration's resolve to support the Japan International Cooperation Agency's planned project to be executed in the FCT. The minister gave this assurance when he received in audience the JICA delegation who paid him a courtesy visit in Abuja. Onoze Yakubu has the details.
The two earmarked projects by the Japan International Cooperation Agency are on capacity development for nutrition improvement and urban development. JICA representatives give an overview of the planned projects with a pledge to resume their interventions in the FCT.
I understand in Nigeria, 25% of Nigerians are still depending on the open. So it is very important to collaborate with not only the UN agency, but also collaborate with the Japanese company who manufacture these toilets in Nigeria.
As we discussed and agreed at the last meeting, we are now in the process for preparation for implementing this master plan division work.
FCT Minister Nyesom Wike assures the visiting delegation of his administration readiness to provide support with a plan to improve on the 2025 budgetary allocations on nutrition and urban development to achieve the desired results.
For the 2025 budget, we'll try as much as we can to see whether we can improve on our budgeting system for that, but with transparency to really know how the monies are being spent. Nutrition is very key for health, very key for education, and also very key for agriculture. So if we could add more, it will go a long way in improving the standard of these three major sectors.
It will be recalled that the Japan International Cooperation Agency has been working in collaboration with the FCT administration towards ending open defecation and providing other intervention projects in the nation's capital. Onoze Yakubu, NTA News.
You're watching the news at 10 on NTA News 24. More reports when we return. Thanks for being there. U.S. mission in Nigeria has commended the people of Edo State for the widely peaceful conduct of Biden's re-election on September 21st. In a statement, Richard Mills Jr., U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, calls for calm following the announcement of the results. U.S. envoy, however, expressed confidence in Governor Obasaki towards promoting peace and urged all stakeholders, including INEC, to support established electoral processes and respect legal procedures to challenge results. The United States reaffirmed its commitment to support free, fair, transparent and credible elections in Nigeria and will continue to monitor the situation closely. And to the Red Chambers, the Senate has resumed plenary after 2 months of recess to return to legislative business. Among the requests from the President for the confirmation of appointees, including the Acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Kudirat Kekereekun. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports.
The President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, after exchange of pleasantries with colleagues on the first day of plenary, read a string of letters from President Tinubu requesting confirmation of the Acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, the National Coordinator of National Social Investment Program, and 21 others as commissioners of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Also transmitted for parliamentary approval is an additional 2024 supplementary budget of the Federal Capital Territory to improve human capital and infrastructure. The President, however, notified the Senate of his decision to withhold assent to the bill that seeks to increase the retirement age for some categories of staff of the National Assembly and legislative houses across the country from 60 to 65.
Upon thorough examination and careful consideration, I have decided to withhold my assent to the bill. This decision is made in accordance with the powers vested in me by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
While welcoming legislators from recess, Akpabio urged them to inspire hope in the hearts of Nigerians by reminding citizens that their dreams are valid and aspirations achievable.
I implore each and every one of you to continue to reflect upon the weight of the responsibilities that we bear as legislators in the current situation. We are indeed the voice of the people, entrusted with a sacred mandate to advocate for their rights and elevate their living standards. The challenges we face may seem formidable, yet we are also poised to confront them with unwavering candor and relentless determination, and together we shall succeed.
The former Chief Whip of the Senate, Senator Ojus Okalu, also commends the federal government for various interventions, urging that more should be done to cushion current economic hardship.
We feel that the reformation going on now have never happened in the last 60 years. No president, as I'm telling you, had the courage to do what President Tinubu is doing now. It's about courage. But I appeal to federal government, I appeal to the president to know how he can bring succor quickly.
In line with tradition, Senate suspended consideration of all items on the order paper in honor of late Senator Ifeanyi Ubah, representing Anambra South, who died during the 2024 annual recess. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
And to the Green Chambers, President Bola Tinubu has also transmitted an additional 2024 supplementary budget proposal for the Federal Capital Territory to the House of Representatives for consideration and passage by lawmakers. Upon resumption, the Green Chamber also adjourned plenary after an abridged session to honor the memory of late Senator Ifeanyi Ubah. National Assembly correspondent Mitari Ben brings us details.
Resumption of plenary after 2 months of parliamentary recess was characterized by the usual exchange of banters among lawmakers. Speaker Tajuddin Abbas thereafter read the president's proposal for an additional 2024 supplementary budget for the Federal Capital Territory.
This supplementary budget proposal has been prepared on the basis of the FCT's reviewed revenue and expenditure forecast, and is aligned with the fiscal and developmental policies of the federal government and the renewed hope agenda. With it, the FCTA continues to prioritize improvement of human capital and infrastructure within the Federal Capital Territory.
The House then adjourned plenary in line with its tradition to honor late Senator Ifeanyi Ubah, who died during the recess.
His passing is a great loss to the National Assembly, his family, and the country as a whole.
This is the first substantive session after the unfortunate demise of Senator Ubah. We're back, with regular plenary sittings, and we have certain areas that we anticipate that we would have, a lot of concentration on. First of all, we're expecting the 2025 appropriation proposal from the president, from the executive arm of government, and we anticipate that should come in sometime about October.
Major expectation is MTEF, medium-term financial expenditure framework of the Mr. President, which will now form the basis upon which the budget 2025 will be premised.
And we expect that there will be several motions and bills that will come on board after our engagement with our constituencies.
The House is one of the most effective part of this government because, we are grassroots oriented. Most of us, we don't have any other place to go to. We must go home. And we feel the impact of everything, positive or negative, directly. So we must act very well.
Meanwhile, plenary and other legislative activities will resume on Wednesday, 25th September 2024, with an expected inauguration of a joint ad hoc committee to investigate challenges in the oil and gas sector. From the National Assembly, Mitaire Ikben, NTA News.
Many thanks, Mitari. Access to public records and information is crucial for advancing the Sustainable Development Goals, enhancing people's lives, and promoting transparency in governance. This was the thrust of a workshop by the House of Representatives Committee and FOI to create awareness, acceptance, and enforcement by governing institutions. National Assembly correspondent Amina Saidu reports.
The Freedom of Information Act was enacted on the 28th of May 2011 to provide the rights of persons to access or request information contained in any form which is in custody or possession of any public official, agency or institution.
Freedom of information is a law in this country, and it promotes transparency and accountability. The citizens need to know what is really happening. The citizens need to know what their leaders are doing. Because in a democracy, citizens have the right to choose their leaders. And those leaders must be accountable to them. We will also explore initiative approaches to bridge the gap between policy and practice, ensuring that our laws and institutions serve the people.
With the theme Freedom of Information and the Burden of Access for National Economic Development, the workshop seeks to enhance the knowledge base of participants towards understanding their legal rights to access to information and protection as public officers under the Act.
It's one good opportunity to be able to tap from the experiences of our people so that we can continue to update our legal frameworks. When a law is made, even when signed into a law, or a bill is made and signed into law, it does not mean that that bill is perfect. There could be some loopholes, gray areas, need for update, review, so that we can be able to actually come up with laws to be able to actually compete with other laws that have been made globally.
A book by the Chairman Committee on Freedom of Information was also presented to the public as a guide towards implementation of the Access to Information and Public Records in Nigeria. Amina Saidu, NTA News.
And the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has further tightened interest rates by 50 basis points to 27.25% from 26.75% to safeguard price stability gains achieved. Musa Abaka reports that the Central Bank Governor, Olayemi Cardoso, disclosed the position of the Monetary Policy Committee at the end of its meeting in Abuja.
The CBN Monetary Policy Committee is meeting again. Their mission to decide the next steps in managing Nigeria's monetary policy after latest inflation by the National Bureau of Statistics showed inflation had declined to 32.15%, with core inflation rising to 27.58% in the same period. The committee welcomed the development and observed stability and convergence in exchange rates across different market segments, attributed to the bank's tight monetary policy stance, but acknowledged that further efforts are needed to achieve the bank's price stability mandate.
The fact that we are seeing the reductions and the deceleration over the course of the last couple of months is very, very good news. However, we are not out of the woods yet. We are not out of the woods yet, and we really cannot take any chances.
They noted the ongoing growth in money supply and recognized the need to control excess liquidity and address foreign exchange demand pressures.
We're also concerned about the growing level of fiscal deficit, but acknowledged the commitment of the fiscal authority not to resort to monetary financing through ways and means.
To safeguard price stability gains, they decided to retain asymmetric corridor at plus 500 and minus 100 basis point, raise cash reserve ratio to 50% for deposit money banks and 16% for merchant banks, while liquidity ratio remains 30%. In Abuja, I am Musa Abubakar, NTA News.
Let's take another break. The news continues in a moment.